Happy Halloween.
And welcome to Scenecraft.
From opening shots to long takes and epilogues, we examine our favorite scenes from cinema here on the podcast. I'm Cody, and I want to play a game with
Mark
and Connor.
You can find Scenecraft on most social media platforms at Scenecraft Podcast for the latest news on the show. In celebration of its 20-year anniversary and All Hallows Eve, we'll be discussing 2004's Saw, directed by James Wan. And at the end of the episode, we will be joined by legendary Special Effects Supervisor Tom Bellissimo to discuss his work to bring the gruesome traps of Saw to life. But as usual, let's begin with our brief What We've Been Watching segment, Quick Takes.
Speak quickly.
Quickly, thank you.
Quickly, come on. Hurry up, quicker.
Way quicker.
Okay, I'll say it fast.
So this week being Halloween week, we're going to do a little bit of, horror-themed quick takes. So, Mark, kick us off with your first pick.
Let's start off with a 10 out of 10 on the the gory scale here. I watched Terrifier 2, which was directed by Damien Leone and released in 2022. And the logline reads, "After being resurrected by a sinister entity, Art the Clown returns to the timid town of Miles County, where he targets a teenage girl and her younger brother on Halloween night." So are you guys familiar with the Terrifier series or Art the Clown?
Yeah, but just from like what I've seen on social media, I haven't seen any of the movies.
Okay.
Yeah, same here. All over TikTok and watched all the, kill videos and stuff as I told you, Mark. But
yeah,
I really regretted that, but haven't seen the actual movies.
Yeah, I was kind of in the same boat. And so I just decided, hey, I'm going to watch one of these. Art the Clown is kind of being sold as like this generation's new horror icon among the likes of Jason, Freddy Krueger, Ghostface. And from what I had heard, because the first one isn't that great, I was told to start with the second one. And that's what I did. I started with this one. And before I get into my thoughts on it, I do think it's a little worthwhile to note that the franchise isn't owned by one of the major film studios. And the films are technically unrated because they intentionally did not submit to the MPAA, who assigns like the R, G, PG-13 ratings. And
so they don't go to the theaters.
They do. So that's what's interesting about it. So if they had submitted to the MPAA, it would probably get the NC-17 rating, which you guys know is like the kiss of death at the box office.
Yeah.
But what had happened was because they're unrated, they kind of bypassed that. And the funny part about it too is that unrated films historically would also do pretty poorly at box offices too, because a lot of theater chains wouldn't play them. But because of COVID and the Hollywood strikes, there was a drought of wide releases. And so these theater chains were not desperate, but they were looking for more movies to play. And so that's how Terrifier 2 went into theaters, and it was an unexpected success.
Wow.
I always just assumed it was like streaming only. I didn't realize it was even in theaters.
Yeah, me too. And so because they're kind of working outside of the system, the Terrifier films are really infamous for their extreme levels of gore, to the likes of like, which I had never even seen before. So here's what I'll say. If your thing is watching people being like brutally murdered in really cruel ways, then this is definitely the series for you.
Then we're really worried about you.
Yeah, first off.
Yeah. Well, so I even find it a bit shocking and semi-alarming at how big of a following this franchise has. But for what it does it really well. I will say that. On the other side of things, the independence of the film is almost kind of like a double-edged sword, because one of the things that kind of sinks Terrifier 2 is its lengthy runtime. It's about 2 hours and 18 minutes long.
Way too long.
Yeah, it can make it really hard. It can make it really hard to maintain the intended level of tension for that long without feeling fatigued by it. There's a reason why all the classic slashers are around 90 minutes, right? So as an overall film, I think Terrifier 2 is not really anything too special. The narrative is pretty bare thin, and the script is pretty terrible. You can tell from the log line, I'm guessing. But if you are looking for something like a memorable set of like gruesome kills, then this film will be hard to top in a lot of ways. So I would give a cautioned light recommendation for Terrifier 2, which is now streaming on Amazon Prime, or you can do what Cody did and just watch Terrifier 1 and 2 kills highlight reels on YouTube if you just want to get right to it.
Oh, man. So I'm curious, where does this rank in terms of most gruesome things you've ever seen?
It's definitely like top 3.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah,
That's saying a lot too, coming from you.
Yeah, the substance, we saw that recently, and that gives it a run for its
That's
money in
another
some
one.
ways. But
Yeah, these strike me as more just like the blood and gore factor versus substance is much more just the imagery you see.
It's a
like,
little more fantastical versus
Yeah.
like the realism of a kill.
Yes.
yeah. The only thing I'll say about the Terrifier series, and once again, I've only seen the second one, but I really want to emphasize how cruel it is. Like that's the part that made it hard for me to watch in a lot of ways, because they just like, they don't cut away, and they really show a lot of stuff and like the people suffering, and it just like, I don't know. It's kind of hard to watch.
Not to call out Damien Leone, but do you think people who make something like this inherently have like a screw loose?
Oh man, that's a good question. I honestly feel like it's just the crescendo of people wanting to be surprised and shocked over the years, and I think Saw is a really good kind of level in 2004 to kind of measure that against, and we'll talk about it.
Test.
But
yeah,
I mean, it's come so far now that it's like, what can you show audiences to shock them? And this movie definitely answers that question. So
I think it's like a hard pass for me, but glad you watched it.
I also watched Evil Dead Rise, which was directed by Lee Cronin and was released in 2023, so last year. And the logline reads, "A twisted tale of two estranged sisters whose reunion is cut short by the rise of a flesh-possessing demon, thrusting them into a primal battle for survival as they face the most nightmarish version of family imaginable." So we recently covered Alien Romulus, and I decided to explore the reimagining of the Evil Dead series, starting with Fede Alvarez's Evil Dead from 2013. And I really enjoyed it. I thought it was good, and it was good enough that I decided to move forward and watch the sequel, Evil Dead Rise. And the reason that also I decided to do that was because I remember it getting decent reviews when it came out as well.
Right,
so
right.
It was kind of almost unexpected to me a little bit. So between the two movies, I was actually surprised that I preferred Evil Dead Rise. And so Evil Dead 2013, I understand that it's a callback to the original movie, but it felt much more like a traditional horror movie with a group of faceless young adults in a cabin in the woods, whereas Evil Dead Rise boldly breaks out of those confines.
Cool.
So the eerie cabin is swapped out for an urban apartment. The focus shifts from a group of 20-something-year-old friends to a tight-knit family. And while these changes seem semi-minor, I really do feel like they enhance the overall experience. And they showcase these striking horror visuals and an unforgettable, unhinged performance from Alyssa Sutherland. So it's a twisted little film that defies a lot of horror conventions. I would recommend checking out Evil Dead Rise, which is now streaming on Max, the one to watch for HBO.
Awesome. Glad you liked it.
What about you, Connor? What have you been watching?
So I have also been watching some spooky movies, but much less gruesome than the two you just talked us through, Mark.
It's hard to top.
So I started with a recent Netflix movie, It's What's Inside, directed by Greg Jardin, and it came out about a month ago, earlier this month. The logline reads, "A group of friends gather for a pre-wedding party that descends into an existential nightmare when an estranged friend arrives with a mysterious game that awakens long-hidden secrets, desires, and grudges." So we've all seen this at this point, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And Cody, I think you were the first one to recommend it to the group. And I'm really glad I watched this. Had a lot of fun with it. For anyone who hasn't seen it yet, you may be feeling a bit of frustration with the first 30 minutes. I know, Mark, we texted about this, but it gets off to kind of a hyperactive start. There's a lot to take in at the beginning of the movie, a lot of quick cutting and editing, many characters to get to know. But once you're past that 30 minutes and the initial premise really kicks off, it has a lot of fun exploring these existential sort of thriller genre tropes in a way that I haven't really seen done before. So the editing and cinematography choices do a great job of letting you keep up with some of the changes that happen throughout the story. But the setting of a pre-wedding party in this mansion that's somewhere on the East Coast, it's nighttime, got sort of the spooky October vibe going on, and a lot of fun to be had in terms of getting to know the characters and their motivations and how that starts to play out over its runtime. Again, I don't want to give away too much of the premise because that's what makes the movie so fun once you really get into it. But I had a great time with this, and it was really a pleasant surprise for me overall after seeing where it ends up.
That's great.
Yeah. I'm really glad you're light on the details, Connor, because I think a lot of the fun comes from that premise unraveling organically in the movie. And so to anybody who's even remotely interested in this, please do not read any details or any further plot summaries. Just kind of go in blind.
Yeah, I almost like, I know I kept it very light, but it is intentional. And outside of just saying that you should go in, enjoying it, the closest thing I could maybe compare it to in terms of a setting is another movie that I recently watched, Bodies, 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 directed by Helena Rain from 2022.
Nice. And
the logline reads, when a group of rich 20-somethings plan a hurricane party at a remote family mansion, a party game turns deadly.
So that's great. It's like the same logline.
I know.
That's so
It's
funny.
the same, but like as soon as we watched It's What's Inside, it just made my wife and I want to rewatch Bodies, Bodies, Bodies because of that setting, because of that friend group, the dynamics at play. For anyone who hasn't seen Bodies, 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 it's an A24 movie. It's available to stream on Max right now, so it's definitely worth catching, and it's a nice complement to It's What's Inside. It's a little less psychological or existential in the way that the thriller plays out. It's much more based on the human motivations of this friend group, secrets coming to life over time, and just a lot of miscommunication that may happen in the dark when the power goes out during a hurricane. So a lot of great set pieces and thrilling moments and very unexpected twists that the movie takes you on, combined with some amazing writing and really funny performances. I think with Bodies, 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 you get a lot more of that comedy aspect and that like biting sarcasm and humor. A little less so with It's What's Inside. But again, the two movies are trying to do very different things. I would say out of the two, Bodies, Bodies, Bodies is probably more of a fun ride for me, but I loved the thought and possibilities of It's What's Inside, just a completely different route, almost more of like a Twilight Zone-esque thriller there versus Bodies, 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 which is just a pure fun kind of late summer blockbuster when it came out.
Yeah.
So if you're interested in checking that one out, it's on Max to stream. What about you, Cody? What have you been keeping yourself up at night with?
Yeah. Well, this first one definitely did. It is Bone Tomahawk, directed by S. Craig Zahler. This came out in 2015. The logline reads, in the dying days of the Old West, an elderly sheriff and his posse set out to rescue their town's doctor from cannibalistic cave dwellers. So, have you guys heard of this filmmaker, S. Craig Zahler, before? Seen any of his movies?
I don't think so.
I've heard of this film, and I know there's like a really intense scene in this film.
Yeah, there is. Well, he's an interesting filmmaker, more of an independent filmmaker, and I've now seen all of his films so far. There are two others beside this one, but he's kind of a cruel, mean-spirited filmmaker, sort of like you were talking about, Mark, with Terrifier. And I wanted my horror theme today for my quick takes to be like horror genre blends. And so I chose to watch Bone Tomahawk because it is described as a period Western horror. So I really like Westerns, and I thought that'd be fun to kind of combine the two genres. So for me, that was a really cool mix I hadn't seen before. The premise alone really intrigued me. Bone Tomahawk was actually Zoller's first feature and is no exception to that. It's very mean-spirited. The characters are treated as fodder for scenes of brutal and spiteful ultraviolence that could be good or bad for you depending on, what you want out of a horror movie. Problem is, there's a lot of stereotyping in this film having to do with indigenous peoples. It just doesn't feel good to watch, despite its exposition trying to kind of wave that away. They have like a tokenistic, native person saying this tribe that's cannibalistic, they're not like a real Native American tribe, and that just doesn't do it. It's still depicting them in a really poor way. So the first 2 acts of the movie are also really slow. Honestly, there's just no way I could responsibly recommend this movie to anybody, except maybe for you, Mark. But I will say that Kurt Russell is always amazing, and his mustache, always amazing. Matthew Fox is in it, and he hasn't been cool. He hasn't been in a ton other than Lost, so it's always great to see him. And Richard Jenkins really has fun with his role. He's kind of like a backup sheriff's deputy that's doing kind of like an old man voice, and it's just really fun. But it is a bit of fun to wander into these ridiculously bloody skirmishes with this posse. So for whatever that's worth, if you think that sounds fun, that's Bone Tomahawk, available on Hulu and Netflix. I'm sure you can rent it on Apple TV as well. Next up, had a bit of a throwback watch. I saw Idle Hands, directed by Rodman Flender. This came out in 1999. The logline reads, "A lazy teen's life spirals out of control when his right hand becomes possessed by an evil entity that kills on a whim, forcing him to fight back against his own appendage with the help of his stoner friends."
So 90s, that logline.
Really, really 90s. Great title for a film. Such a stupid movie. But that is the fun of it. I distinctly recall watching this in high school at least once, and I thought the horror comedy blend would make for an interesting walk down memory lane this Halloween. I had no clue how we discovered this movie at the time, considering we were 9 when it originally released in theaters, which was actually just 10 days after the Columbine school shooting. Yeah, really unfortunate. This film's depiction of teenage violence obviously did not play well at the time, and it was pulled from cinemas nationwide. And to make matters worse, the production company behind the film was Sony's Columbia Pictures. So the name recognition there does not help. Just all around bad timing for this film, but somehow I managed to see it on DVD in a friend's really cool home theater when I was about 15, like mahogany, like wood paneled theater, like an awesome huge house.
Yeah,
and
that's so cool.
I can't remember if were you there? Did we all watch it together?
I don't think I was. I've never seen this movie.
I think I might have been there for that.
Okay. I thought maybe, yeah. But yeah, this is a teen comedy mixed with a classic slasher. It features many cringeworthy 90s moments, Seth Green walking around as a zombie with a glass bottle sticking out of his head, a Halloween Offspring concert, and plenty of weed jokes blended with sequences of wanton violence and gore. It's all you could ever want in this type of movie. It's really not aiming to be anything more than a fun and gruesome romp. I can see why it has a cult following. And despite its absurdity, it's a blast to be transported into the late 90s, especially around this time of year when, you guys, I'm sure many of us have memories of hitting the cul-de-sac with pillowcases full of candy.
Oh, yeah.
Great to reminisce. So that's Idle Hands, available on Amazon Prime with a membership, and also to rent on Apple TV.
Nice.
Well, thank you guys for your spooky Halloween quick takes this week. So now let's move into our discussion about Saw, which turned 20 this year.
Wow.
Starring Lee Whannell, Carrie Elwes, Tobin Bell, and Danny Glover, among many others.
Hello, Amanda. You don't know me, but I know you. I want to play a game. The device you're wearing is hooked into your upper and lower jaws. When the timer in the back goes off, your mouth will be permanently ripped open. Think of it like a reverse bear trap.
The logline for the film reads, "Two men awaken to find themselves on opposite sides of a dead body, each with specific instructions to kill the other or face the consequences. These two are the latest victims of the Jigsaw Killer."
Oof.
Quick reminder, at the end of this episode, we have Special Effects Supervisor Tom Brooklyn Bellissimo joining us for his pro take, so tune in for that as we discuss the creation of some of these iconic traps from the film. Really looking forward to that.
Me too.
Yeah, same here.
First, let's start, as usual, with our spoiler-free section on Saw. Mark, what did you think upon rewatch?
I get this question a lot from you guys, especially Connor. Why do you like this franchise so much? It's really messed up. And I think it's...
This is the stuff you like?
Yeah, I know. Well, I think it's finally time to let you guys in on a little secret. So the year's 2004, and I'm a freshman in high school browsing the IMDb message boards, rest in peace. And I come across this new horror movie, Saw. And I remember people were discussing the buzz it raised at Sundance earlier that year. They said it felt fresh and it was disturbing, scary. And so a little background on me. Prior to seeing Saw, I wasn't really a fan of horror movies. I just didn't really understand the appeal. The only horror movie that I had seen in theaters at that point was Freddy vs. Jason, and that was enough for me. So Saw was released around Halloween in 2004, and the only way I could describe it is that there was like this palpable forbiddenness surrounding the movie at school. And I hadn't really met anybody who had seen it because it was rated R, it required a guardian. And I remember during the week of its release, making a bunch of like offhanded jokes about seeing it to my parents. And they obviously didn't know anything about it. And they just kind of snickered and went about their day, right? Because like Saw, like, what is that about? You don't really know. And then finally, in early November, I made another joke about seeing it. And I remember it was on a Monday evening. And my parents caught me completely off guard, and they were like, okay, yeah, let's just go see it.
Wow.
So I got what I wished for, and I was both nervous and excited for it. I didn't know what I got myself into. And although it may seem tame by today's standards, Saw was unlike anything I had experienced at the time. The traps were sadistic. There were so many abundant jump scares, and the only thing that kind of helped me out with this movie was there are a couple unexpected moments of humor sprinkled in there. So like that definitely helped. But by the iconic finale, I was just in shock. And I had to make sure I told everybody at school the next day that I had seen it. And let me tell you, it was a big deal back then. I remember nonchalantly, telling a few people in the hallway that I had seen it. And then by the end of the day, I had a couple of people come up to me and ask, how messed up was it? And I definitely wore it like a badge of honor. So when someone asks me about what it is about Saw that I'm drawn to, the answer is it was truly a moment of bravery for me. I was terrified to see it, but I conquered that fear, and it felt like a big moment for me. So rewatching the film for this episode, I realized how much it plays out more like a whodunit mystery rather than a typical horror movie.
Totally.
Did you guys feel that way?
I picked up on the same thing. Yeah.
Yeah. And while there are a few solid entries in the 9 films that followed the original Saw, many of them seem like they learned like the wrong lesson from the original, which was they now just kind of focus solely on the traps for what it's worth. Right. And I'll admit that once we know who the killer is, the surprise is kind of gone. And the writers, they probably are forced to insert these inorganic twists in order to one up the previous film. So there really is like this purity to the original Saw film that was born out of this simple premise. and a tight budget, which we'll discuss. And I think it's all of that makes it truly special in my eyes. A couple random facts to throw in about my prior obsession with Saw. My fandom for the franchise peaked when I bid and won an on-screen used t-shirt from Saw 2 on eBay.
Nice.
There was a point where my mom had asked a Blockbuster employee if they had any spare promotional materials from the film, and the employee gave us a Blockbuster Saw t-shirt in a XXL size.
So cool.
And the most obscure version of the film I own is on UMD, which is a movie format to play on Sony's handheld PSP gaming console from 2005. So some little fun facts to wrap things up here.
Nice.
I'm so curious, Connor, what did you think with your rewatch of Saw?
No, it's quite the collection. So first off, I cannot believe it's been 20 years. Like I can't believe that this is the 20th anniversary. I feel so old, and it feels like just the other day that we were, gushing over this film. Honestly, you guys were the ones who were really obsessed with it, and I was kind of like going along with it because it really dovetailed with our obsession and love for movies and like really fostering this drive to create movies of our own. I think there's an ingenuity of this movie that inspired us on a lot of levels. So I'm excited to dig into that more. As you guys know, I think Saw was kind of a line in the sand for me in terms of what I was able to stomach at the time. I know, you were really into it, Mark. Cody, you had seen like a lot more horror movies than I had at the time. So I remember it being like disgusting and disturbing and really over the top in a lot of ways. So I had not seen it since I was a teenager, probably around 15, 16, guessing in, either your basement, Mark, or your basement, Cody, was one of the two.
It's a basement film.
Definitely.
On the rewatch, I was surprised by how little gore there actually is in the movie. Like, it's not that gross. It was pretty tame by today's standards. And I think what surprised me the most out of that was how incredibly bleak it is at the very, in the ending. I won't get into spoilers, but it is a true horror movie. Just in the things that happen to these people, it's not like your typical slasher in that sense.
Right.
I think it was so fun being at a prime age for Saw. We were around 14 years old when it came out. We really got to witness the start of an iconic horror franchise and one of the most recognizable villains in movie history. Looking back 20 years later, it's like Jigsaw has really become a figure in horror. I think the thing that stands out to me the most about the movie definitely has its problems. I think we can kind of get into some of the details of it and have a lot of fun discussing that, of course, as you do with movies that you love. But for me, the thing that stands out the most is the Saw aesthetic. Everybody's filthy. Everybody's covered in like dirt and grime and blood. Everything's disgustingly dirty and grimy. Like they're in this horrible little bathroom room where it's almost impossibly dirty. That is the thing that stands out to me the most. It was such a zig or a zag, not sure which term to use, but such a zig from the glossy 90s and early 2000s like friend group horror movies we've mentioned, where the cast is young and beautiful, and like even the kills seem pretty neat and tidy the way that they're done or they're executed.
Right.
I think leading up to Saw, it might be Seven or maybe David Fincher's grungy green tinted movies that were the only thing really close to it in terms of an aesthetic or vibe or look and feel standpoint. I think for me, looking back on it, it really stands as a moment of time that kicked off a new cultural movement of horror that was more about like torture porn, like Hostel and those kind of movies that followed with Eli Roth. So it really changed the trajectory of what a horror movie can be. I think it was full of super inventive moments, the traps. There's some jump scares that Mark alluded to that are done in a very inventive way throughout the movie. Again, like that look and feel of everything. And then, of course, the iconic twist ending. So many good quotes. I think we'll probably get into a few of those as we go throughout the episode.
Definitely.
So I'll move on and ask Cody, what did you think on your rewatch?
I want to respond to a couple of things that you guys said first. So first off, Mark, well, both of you, have you ever heard of something called the Bannister effect?
No, I don't think so.
That term?
I don't think so.
So it is described as when a barrier previously thought to be unachievable is broken, and then a mental shift happens, enabling many others to break past that barrier. So like a good example would be the Olympics, right?
Yeah.
How, a record that was previously unachievable on, like a running event, Usain Bolt breaks it, and then other people are able to do it because of that.
Yeah.
Mark, it just reminded me of that because it's like this was that record-breaking, gory horror event.
Yes.
And then ever since then, we have seen a line of increasingly horrifying films such as Terrifier, where it's like, how far can we push this?
Right.
And I do wonder at what point this whole thing breaks and it just becomes too much, or we're so desensitized that it's not effective anymore. I don't know which will come first, but it's an interesting thing to think about in comparing something like Terrifier to Saw. Because to your point, Connor, it wasn't as gory outright as I remember. And so that was interesting to compare and think about. And then, Mark, I also just want to respond to your story and give the proper recognition to your parents who had the foresight, the gumption to participate and bring you to movies like this instead of just outright forbidding it.
Yeah.
So now in the face of a film like Saw, horror film, it's actually turned into a nice series of memories for you. So that's really great. I love, you going to a Blockbuster with your mom, and I have to call out the one time I joined you and your mom for one of these movie outings, which was actually for Eli Roth's Hostel.
Oh boy.
This.
Yeah. And I distinctly recall being shocked by the infamous eyeball blowtorch scene.
Oh.
And then at the end, credits are rolling. We look over and your mom kind of like shrugs it off. And she's like, as a medical professional, like, that was pretty realistic. I just remember being like, that's your reaction to sitting through that with two children. I just loved that, and I'll always remember it. And that's not to say my parents didn't play ball too. Shout out to them if they're listening for letting me watch Gladiator, rated R when it came out on VHS. So Mark and Connor, I know we've buried the lead a little bit here, but we all also have a special connection to Saw, not just for the film itself, but because of our short Saw spin-off that we made in high school, on the old digital camera, which we titled Sin. That's what we decided to call that.
Super original.
Kind of genius.
But apparently we were so into Saw at the time that we decided to create our own version of a jigsaw trap, which was an explosive Frankensteinian metal collar that Mark wore as the lead actor. And just like in Saw, we rigged it up to a foam head and we somehow detonated it. I think it may have been like firecrackers or a model rocket engine or something. But I wanted to play just a quick audio clip from our short film, Sin.
Miles, I want to play a game. The device fastened around your neck is not removable. The timer in the back is set to 2 minutes. If the timer runs out, 2 cartridges of gunpowder detonate and your trachea and esophagus will rupture. Here, I'll show you.
Stupid thing off!
Wow. Oh man, that's so
I could
embarrassing.
see a lot of inspiration that you took from Lee Wanell, his performance.
Yeah.
Like, it was like holding up a mirror. Like, you did a great job.
Yeah.
I think he says that. Get this thing off me.
Yeah, he does at the beginning.
Yeah.
Incredible. Well, yeah, I mean, I think that's like for the first time ever, airing it in any way publicly. And, Mark, according to the screen credits, you played the lead character named Miles, which just seems like a name like you would pick. I don't know why.
I think I did.
Yeah. And Connor, it says you were the key grip. And we actually have a bunch of dailies of you in a different trap. I think we filmed in your basement.
Yeah. My parents' unfinished part of their basement, which had that, not quite completely Saw aesthetic, but enough that it worked for us high schoolers.
I think we like rolled in some fog in there.
Oh, yeah.
And
fog
we made it look creepy. But yeah, so unfortunately that scene's on the cutting room floor, but I recently found it, on a DV tape. So I'll share that. But all to say, Saw was clearly formative for all of us in that way. Even if we have varying levels of fondness for the film now or back then at the time, there's no denying that Saw had a huge cultural impact on a number of levels. In the DIY low-budget film scene, it inspired a lot of independent filmmakers as an entry point into the industry, using a limited setting and practical builds to showcase, how low-budget horror could achieve mainstream success. Many also believed it revitalized the horror genre as a whole, like Mark was mentioning, or at least added a new subcategory that really touched on something more visceral and psychological. And it spurred one of the longest-running horror franchises in cinema with numerous sequels and spin-offs. Mark, I think you said there are 10 of them.
There are, yeah.
Total?
There's 10.
Yeah. That's
and
crazy.
you've seen them all.
I've seen them all.
Wow.
Dedication.
And after rewatching Saw, sure, a lot of it doesn't hold up. Like some weird performance things that we still lovingly make fun of to this day. Some story contrivances, dated stylistic choices, but they only had budget to make this film in 18 days, shooting in chronological order.
So nuts.
And oftentimes, they'd only get 1 or 2 takes shooting on 35 millimeter film stock. So we've got to give them a break and recognize that between the tactile special effects work, the set design, plot twists, Saw has influenced cinema in a big way. I certainly have fond memories watching it.
Oh, same here.
Let's go ahead and dive into our scene selection for the day, which we're going to call Reverse Bear Trap. And as usual, beware of spoilers ahead.
Is there anyone there?
Yes, what do you see?
Spoilers! Right ahead!
Thank you.
Okay, Connor, would you like to give us the scene beats, please?
Sure, I would love to. So this scene starts about 24 minutes into the movie and runs for roughly 6 minutes. The scene begins after Dr. Lawrence Gordon, played by Cary Elwes, is cleared of suspicion as the Jigsaw killer. Before he can leave the police station, he is asked to listen to the testimony of the only known survivor, Amanda Young, played by Shawnee Smith, in hopes of gaining any insight into the killer's identity. The narrative shifts to a flashback where Amanda recounts her harrowing experience through voiceover. Chosen for her history of drug addiction, she awakens in a dark, dingy room, disoriented and trapped in the terrifying reverse bear trap, a rusty contraption clamped to her jaw that will rip her mouth wide open when the timer expires. An old TV flickers to life, revealing a clown-like puppet with a white face and red spirals on its cheek, its distorted voice explaining the gruesome rules of this game. Panic grips Amanda as she realizes that the key to her release is hidden in the stomach of her supposedly dead cellmate, who is actually just sedated. With the clock ticking down, Amanda is forced to stab the man, removing a key from his stomach, and escapes the contraption just before time runs out. This chilling scene highlights the horrific ingenuity of the Jigsaw killer and the brutal choices his victims must face to survive.
So maybe we can kind of start with why we think this was the scene to choose. And I think there's an argument to be made that when you think of Saw as a franchise, the reverse bear trap is the most famous piece of iconography from Saw, along with Billy the Puppet. And its texture design, the violent mechanical action of the device is worthy enough to live on one of the posters for the film and also just like in cinema history.
Yeah, definitely. And the scene also highlights Jigsaw's philosophy of, giving his victims a choice. It's the first time we really explore that in these horrific situations, emphasizing that survival means confronting moral failures in your life, not simply just escaping death. So by crafting each trap to reflect the wrongdoings of the victim, Jigsaw's psychological approach actually forces them to face their past actions and challenges them to earn their survival through pain and sacrifice in a twisted form of justice.
Yeah.
So this transforms the typical horror experience into a moral quandary.
Yeah.
And it raises questions about accountability, redemption, and making life or death choices. It's interesting theming there rather than just a slasher.
Yeah, and we see a lot of it at play in this scene in particular, but it's really aesthetically influential as well because of this rotating camera, undercranking technique, and this quickly cut editorial style that introduces a lot of chaos and brutality to the image. That look is really iconic. I mean, even more so watching it back, I was like, wow, this is just such a moment in time. We were obsessed with that look and feel too. Like, hadn't really seen it done before. And we can dig more into that executionally, how that was brought to life in a bit.
Yeah. I also think that this scene is just like the perfect example of the Saw franchise's signature, so to speak, approach to horror. And I think what sets Saw apart from other films is the inventive and gruesome traps. You know, gone are the typical looming slashers that simply build tension from stalking their victims. Instead, the tension in Saw comes from these individualized scenarios that each victim faces, and then putting their perseverance and their will to survive to the ultimate test. So it does feel very distinct from other horror movies.
Well, you hear that in a couple lines of dialogue too, where the characters are like, well, he's not actually a killer, technically speaking. Like the victims, kill themselves. Like he sets up the trap. So it is a very, interesting reverse take on the trope that we're all so familiar with horror up to this point.
Yeah, this is just it's the OG example of that.
Yeah,
from the Saw series.
So Australian director James Wan and writer Lee Whannell had just finished film school when they decided that they wanted to write and fund a film that was inspired by the low-budget films like The Blair Witch Project and Aronofsky's Pi.
Oh, no way. I never knew that was the inspiration. That's cool.
Yeah. And so they wrote the spec script and they submitted it to their manager, and they were advised to shoot a scene from the script as a short film, kind of like a proof of concept for the film. So it's a way to sell it.
Yeah.
And using a $5,000 budget, they shot the reverse bear trap scene on 16 millimeter film. And they had Lee Whannell in the trap instead of Shawnee Smith. And they submitted the scene to numerous studios, and this resulted in being hired by Lionsgate. And the actual eventual creation of the horror genre production label Twisted Pictures, which was another thing that hit me.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah.
When that production logo dropped and the animation of the like twisted barbs or whatever. Yeah, the barbed wires come in over the logo. I was like, damn, I'm transported back to 2004.
Yes, exactly.
This is notably a low budget film, tight shooting schedule. We mentioned 18 days, filmed in 6-day shoot blocks over the course of 3 weeks. That is just grueling.
Crazy.
So with a shooting budget of $700,000, Saw began principal photography on September 22nd, 2003 at Lacey Street Production Facility in LA. And then after wrap, at some point, only $400 were spent on reshoots that Wan and Whannell did on their own. And for the reshoots, Whannell served as a stand-in for this Amanda character, searching for her key to unlock the bear trap. And the shot of the shadow where she lifts the knife and plunges it into her cellmate, that silhouette is actually Whannell.
No way.
Yeah.
So let's talk a little bit about the reverse bear trap mechanism itself. I think obviously we'll have a lot of questions for Tom later on once we get that chance to interview him, which I'm so excited about. And I know Mark, you probably can't wait for. But what we had read a little bit about in the construction of the bear trap mechanism is because the original trap in the short film was made with a very limited budget, very little time, they actually used an all real steel contraption for that trap. So when they made that short film version, it was as heavy as any real bear trap and just as dangerous as one for Whannell, who played David, the victim in the original Saw short film. So like, imagine just having that thing on your head. It was probably crazy heavy.
Yeah. And I had read in a couple interviews with Tom, and we'll be sure to ask him about this too.
Yeah.
But I think he had to pivot and make a new contraption because it was so heavy. They were going to be using Shawnee Smith. So that heavy of a device would be kind of hard. But I had heard that he used aluminum to make it a little bit lighter, and that she actually used a tongue depressor in between her teeth to keep the trap in place on her head.
Oh, no way.
So that was kind of a little interesting tidbit I found.
And then, of course, some of the most classic iconography is, in addition to the actual trap, is Billy the puppet, which I guess he's never identified that way in any of the films. He's just referred to as that by Wan and, a number of the filmmakers.
I didn't know that was his nickname.
Yeah. Billy the puppet.
It's random.
But just that classic look to him. And I don't know about you guys, this part was the scariest element of Saw to me. I really don't like puppets and ventriloquists, and just this little guy riding out on his tricycle out of the shadows and like talking. That would scare me more than having this contraption on my head, honestly. I'd be like, get that thing away from me. But
you just committed murder, but this puppet is like the most shocking thing that you've seen.
Right. That's what would traumatize me. But so Billy the puppet, he's an iconic ventriloquist dummy. He's wearing a black tuxedo with a white shirt and gloves, a red bow tie, red handkerchief in the breast pocket, and he rides a red tricycle. It's a really clever way for the filmmakers to deliver exposition on the traps as Jigsaw's proxy, giving the rules of each game while keeping Jigsaw's identity hidden.
Exactly. Yeah. And at the same time, it does become like a calling card for the series because he's like instantly recognizable with his white face paint, the red spirals on his cheeks. And then, like you mentioned, Cody, he kind of taps into the population's fear of like dolls and clowns.
Yeah.
So like it's a very efficient mascot, so to speak, for the movie.
Yeah. And I mean, throw that like TV effect, the grainy static over the top of him when he talks, and it just makes it that much creepier too. And I think, of course, talking about the reverse bear trap, Billy the puppet, some great iconic pieces of design here. We, of course, have to mention production designer Julie Berghoff and her whole team, who created some of the most memorable sets in a horror film on such a limited budget. I think the reverse bear trap setting is just so grimy and caked with rust and filth. And the creepy cathode ray tube television that Billy the puppet shows up on, it just caps off this eerie setting. We also have the legendary white, well, it's like sort of white bathroom set, of course.
At one time was
speaks
white.
for itself. Each design choice actually plays into a plot beat or interaction with the character, and that true intersection of production design and other filmmaking disciplines is really rare, so we get to see it shine here.
Yeah. Cody, do you feel like, once again, the tighter budget, shorter time frame to film the movie, probably a more limited group of individuals working on the film, do you think that kind of helped accentuate that kind of team building approach to making this movie?
I think definitely. Yeah. I mean, it clearly created a certain, intimacy on set, and probably required each crew member to be even more collaborative and give more to the production, and made each of them probably feel very empowered versus like the few times I've been on set. Mark, I've been on set with you as PAs on like a major music video shoot somewhat recently.
Yeah.
And I don't know about you, I hadn't been a PA in a long time, but I have this term that I use with, another coworker a lot, but like clown shoes. Like oftentimes I just feel like I'm just wearing these big honking like clown shoes walking around because I have nothing to actually do other than just kind of be there to help. So I often feel like clumsy or useless. And for a scenario like this, where every person is probably playing, multiple different roles, sometimes you see like these miracle films come as a result of those limitations rather than having a massive budget and throwing the kitchen sink at it. So this is kind of the opposite. Well, I thought we could kind of dig into the, visual components of the film, cinematography, editing. Let's first dig into the lighting a little bit. So due to that low budget, director of photography David A. Armstrong, he relied heavily on practical lighting instead of these large grid lighting builds on a stage. Often using harsh single source lights to cast these hard shadows, which ultimately adds to that oppressive feel of the film. Like we were talking earlier, everyone in the film, everyone looks like shit on purpose. They have these like dark shadows under their eyes. It's like, sweat stains all over their clothes. And this lighting does not do them any favors on purpose. And, they even use fluorescent bulbs to achieve this green spike hue and that cold, washed out look that's really characteristic of these movies.
That's one of the things I feel like when, I don't know if it was SNL or Mad TV, but or maybe it was Scary Movie. Something parodied Saw after this. And I remember that was one of like the things that they used to instantly cue the audience into, hey, you're in the Saw universe, was like the use of lighting. So they really did kind of carve out their own space in that genre. So kudos to them on that.
Another big thing visually I wanted to ask about, and maybe you could give us more background on this, Cody, is that camera undercranking technique where it looks like things are sped up, but also a bit choppy. Could you describe what goes into that process for us?
Yeah, absolutely. So an undercranking technique with a camera, in this case, used to amplify the film's intensity and disorienting atmosphere. It's essentially deliberately set up to shoot at a lower frame rate than the standard 24 frames per second that we're used to. Or if we're digital, sometimes like 23.98, rounding up there. But so 23, 24 frames per second is the standard that the human eye is used to on a cinematic level. And so let's say we shoot at 12 frames per second only, but then you play it back along with the rest of the 24 frames per second footage. That 12 frame per second footage will appear to be sped up in very, jerky, accelerated movement.
Yeah, it's so disorienting.
It's used to make these scenes feel frantic or chaotic, or maybe mimic a psychological state like panic. The sequence also involved a speed ramping technique where they kind of paired that undercranking with standard speed footage. So think something like Zack Snyder's 300.
Okay.
Where one of the Spartans are like going to slice somebody with a sword and it's standard speed and then it goes into slow-mo.
Yeah.
That is used to a different effect here, creating a dynamic, nightmarish quality, in tandem with editor Kevin Grudert, who really shaped the film with his rapid cuts and non-linear plot pieces. He actually went on to direct I think some of the sequels.
Oh, that's
cool.
Think
a couple of the sequels. So that's kind of cool.
That's really cool.
Wow.
I think it's also worth mentioning that it's a really smart way to also kind of hide the lack of budget in some ways. And that isn't to disparage the production designer by any means, but they didn't have that much money to spend on the backgrounds and everything. So by incorporating some of these techniques, you're not really focused on picking out little details in the background. You're focused on the action and the actor reacting to the trap on their face in this instance.
Totally. Yeah. Because if you really look at the background and, freeze frame in the scene, there's a lot of kind of vague tarping going on. Just kind of background tarps. And then paired with the green and yellow color grade, paired with like high contrast, desaturated approach, all these elements together create that decayed and sickly atmosphere. But to your point, Mark, they really made the little money that they had work for this and really convey and get the point across.
So Connor, I've got to ask, can we get a little quick title talk with you for this one? What did you think of the grimy poster and typography for Saw?
Oh, yeah. I mean, this is such a classic poster. And the one that I'm thinking of in particular is the one that became the most well-known for Saw over time. It's the hand and the foot against the white background. So I think right off the bat, like we were just talking about, that white bathroom setting automatically feels so different than anything in the horror genre. I think when we're thinking about posters, you think of a killer's silhouette or face, maybe a mask against a black background with a cast lineup, something like that on the front. Here we're not seeing any actors. We're not seeing, a mask of a killer or the face of a killer or anything like that. It's just two body parts on the ground, super desaturated. Clearly they look like cut off or dead. Like, it looks disgusting. The foot is like bruised up. The hand is like, chipped with its fingernails, kind of lying, face up. We've got some blood drops. And then you've got that, like you said, classic grimy typography that feels like it's cut out of a ransom note or something like that. To me, it feels very inspired by the graphic design work of David Carson from the 90s. He ran a magazine called Ray Gun for many years, and he kind of used this like pairing of different typefaces together to give this like disorienting feel as well. It was something that was pushing back against the clean aesthetics of the time period right before, of like the 70s, 80s clean typography. So this to me is like a graphic response again to maybe those horror posters that were so familiar and commonplace in the 90s or right before this. And then of course you've got like the actual saw blade but the very top, just to really drive the point home that something's going to get cut off in this movie. So it's a great one. And obviously that design language carried through for all 10 movies. They've got that really recognizable aesthetic. You immediately know it's a Saw movie when you see it, which is such a special, like, high compliment that, you could have for your movie series and franchise.
That's really cool, Connor. It's great to hear you describe that, because I oftentimes, like, I don't think about all these little elements, and especially being sort of like the way Saw is to the horror genre, a response to the typical genre tropes we've seen. The poster kind of does that too and reflects that. That's really cool.
And you're going to see that like in the posters for Hostel and Host, like all the movies that kind of followed directly after this, they all had that sort of grimy, gritty texture on them.
Yeah, and I feel like nowadays we've moved more into like a minimalism.
Thing, as a response to that,
right,
it's just all sort of responding to what came before it.
All cyclical. So cool. Well, obviously a very notable piece of the film and the franchise as a whole are the performances and all the fear that is required to make this work. So let's get into some of these performances here.
Yeah. I think we should start with the scene itself. So we see Shawnee Smith, and she was actually chosen for this role by James Wan because he had a crush on her since he saw her performance in the movie The Blob.
No way.
Yeah.
Okay, so Mark, is this why you watched The Blob?
It is.
Recently?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, you're exactly right. Yeah, that is why.
I know that she had an illness on set when she was shooting this. Like, she had a really bad flu, with I guess a fever of 102 degrees while shooting her scenes.
Sounds
which,
awful.
In addition to the lighting, the set, cinematography, all that, which makes them look terrible. That probably actually helped sell it.
Just goes to show, like, the show must go on with like a low budget movie. Like, everybody's chipping in and giving it their all.
Yeah. So her shooting for the whole movie took place over one day, which is also crazy. But I can't imagine being sick and having that, even if it's made out of aluminum, this like heavy object on your head and your face. That must have been tough, but also help kind of channel some of that energy. But I think this film only works because of her performance and that genuine terror on her face. So in a way, having a trap on your mouth almost acts like a handicap for an actor, I would imagine, because you have to rely on, other ways to communicate to the audience how scared you are. And so I think she does a really great job with it.
Yeah, she does an awesome job selling it with the trap on herself, but then also in the interrogation scenes, just the fact that like she can't really explain what happened. Like, it's very, stunted. She's clearly traumatized. She does a great job selling the horror of it just by how much she's not able to describe about what she was feeling. You can tell it really affected her.
One of my favorite and most memorable lines is at the very end of the scene when we flash forward to the interrogation in the police station. and she says something to the effect of like, he helped me.
Right.
Yeah.
And
haunting.
Like, I always remember her performance and kind of like shaky voice as she says it, like with the corners of her mouth clearly scarred from the experience. And like, I think this also leads to her character in future Saw films being involved as one of Jigsaw's acolytes, right?
Yeah. She plays a big role in the future movies for sure.
Mm-hmm.
So one thing that I find interesting, so Tobin Bell, apparently he was intrigued by the script, but one of the things that kind of led him to taking this role was he wanted to work with Danny Glover.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, so it's kind of funny because he is inseparable from Jigsaw. Like he is
Jigsaw.
He is Jigsaw in a lot of ways. And so really interesting to see that. But another thing amongst like the fan community that I find, I don't know, a little bit troublesome is the discussion around whether or not he's like a sympathetic figure, right? Because he's like trying to give these people like a new outlook on life or whatever. But I'm like, I think
that's
he's
taking
like,
it a step too far for
yeah,
me.
me too. I'm like, I'm not going to sympathize for him in that way. But it is an interesting take on a villain who is spurred into these crimes because of a diagnosis of a terminal illness. It is kind of an interesting take on things that I can't think of too many more like that.
It really is. And as you guys know, I've been doing a rewatch of Dexter.
Oh, yeah.
And
Nice.
It had me comparing Jigsaw to the character of Dexter being, having this, wiring in the brain of needing to kill, but it being channeled towards people who are exclusively bad people,
right?
Or murderers themselves.
Right.
And it had me comparing to Jigsaw, where it's kind of like you as a photographer have sat in the shadows too long, so now you must face. It's just funny to me that it's like the people he chose, it's like they're scummy, but it's like you're kind
Very
of
minor.
It's so low stakes. Yeah. It's not like they're serial killers. Yeah.
Exactly.
Right.
It's also like, how did he even find these people?
I thought about that too.
I have two things on Tobin Bell. First was watching this as a teenager. I remember thinking Tobin Bell looked like so old. And watching it again, I'm like, damn, he looks young. Like, he looks good.
Yeah.
In this movie.
Yeah, I felt the same way.
Yeah. And the other thing being the ending. I know we touched on it a little bit in our general take. Probably the most shocking twist I've ever seen in a movie up to this point. When I was 14, blew my mind that he wakes up and he's the body that's in the middle of the room. Such a great plot device, and so cool the way he takes that mask off. The gore on top of his head.
Yeah.
Great reveal.
So I guess Tobin Bell actually laid there like for any shot where, because they didn't have the money for, a proper fake body, a corpse. So that was him laying there very still.
I remember us discussing it too. Like, oh yeah, like probably he gave himself a sedative or something to lay there. The character of Jigsaw, like we were just really obsessed with the movie, trying to break down his thought process through the whole thing. But he does a great job laying there, and the fact that it's really him.
Yeah,
it seems like it could be a dummy or something.
For sure. We would be remiss not to discuss Cary Elwes's performance in this movie.
Oh boy,
here we go. As you wish.
Yeah. So I'm going to preface everything by saying low budget. Apparently they were shooting 16 pages per day.
That's pretty crazy. Yeah, that's a lot.
Okay.
Yeah. And only being able to do one take, when you have rehearsals and everything, but that's rough. So we're not going to dig into him too much, but it's over the years, I think we've enjoyed just repeating some of his dialogue because it's not the best.
The dialogue, I think he goes very big in his performance in a lot of moments. So does Lee Wanell. I think both of them have some just goofy dialogue lines. Like you were saying, Mark, some unexpected moments of humor. Like, what? Why did they throw in this random line about being covered in peanut butter and with strippers or something?
Yeah.
What the heck?
I don't know. Those were like breadcrumbs for me watching this movie, because like I was so like, scared watching it when I first saw it, that like those little like jokes, I was like, oh, like they were like little releases of tension in a way.
Sure.
So they really helped me out then. But yeah, I mean, rewatching them now, some of them are a little bit silly.
So over the top. There is one line in particular that we
Yeah.
send each other quite a bit for many years, and I'll do my best rendition of it. Is that you, Zep, you bastard? I know it's you, you son of a bitch.
Ellie? Ellie?
So goofy.
Oh my God.
I love it so much.
That's an all-timer. And once again, he really goes for it. And it's really not to diminish his performance. But it is just like that shift in tone, which I actually did read the script, and I sent you guys a little snippet, and he hits like
He does.
the beats perfectly for what's in the script. But taken out of context, yeah, we'll send that to each other, and it always like gets a laugh.
Is that you, Zep, you bastard? I know it's you, you son of a bitch!
Larry.
Hallie?
Love
Yeah.
that.
Zep, you bastard. It's like he's spitting, and bits of his actual natural accent slip through all the time in the film. And again, it's probably didn't get much time to practice it. Only had 1 or 2 takes per setup and whatnot. So we're not going to blame him too much. And it's just kind of part of the experience.
Oh
And I
yeah,
think
it enriches the whole thing.
we wouldn't
especially
want it.
rewatches.
we would not want it any other way.
Oh, exactly.
Right.
I mean,
Oh,
yeah.
100%. Yeah.
Yeah, it completely makes it.
Yeah. And clearly a extremely talented guy.
Yeah.
Let's move on to some of the music of the film. So, Charlie Clouser, he's known for his work with Nine Inch Nails, Rob Zombie, and Marilyn Manson. This was actually his first feature film original score. And Wan and Winnell had used remixes of Nine Inch Nails songs for temp score. And they approached Clouser because they, quote, they wanted progressive music that was kind of underground, and they were looking to inject that flavor in the score. And so I think that, once again, we talked about the poster being very different from the rest of the movies in the genre, but this score also feels very different compared to traditional horror movie scores. There's like this heavy rock undertone, and then very industrial with its harsh, mechanical, and unsettling, provocative sounds. And so I think it pairs perfectly for this film.
It does. And it goes into that theme that this film is subversive in what it was trying to do with the genre. And like the direct comparison could be something like, let's just say Psycho, where you have the classic like knife in the shower, and you have the like ring with the the string, the violin hits. And this really is the opposite in that it's taking, instead of something like traditional orchestra kind of sounding spooky, it's just taking full on like industrial metal and, having the characters like rock out to this chaos as they're trying to escape.
Yeah.
One other thing I wanted to mention too, if we're talking about like sound audio components, is the iconic use of the distorted and low jigsaw voice. So I would encourage everybody listening to this episode that likes the movie to search Saw 0.5 on YouTube, and they have the original proof of concept scene of the reverse bear trap to watch. One thing that sticks out like a sore thumb is that when they show Billy the puppet on the screen, they used, I don't know if it was James or Lee's voice or somebody's voice, but it was just like a plain speaking voice. And it definitely doesn't work. It does not work nearly as well. So definitely check that out.
Too long have you sat in the shadows, and
does not hit the same at all.
Yeah. And I mean, adding further to the sound design and mix of it all, they inserted a lot of these panning mechanical sounds that coincide with these dizzying camera movements rotating around the character of Amanda to give a sense of this disorientation that we've been talking about, and that impression of movement created by the the blur of the camera and the undercranking. So just kind of giving it this very grimy, clicky, very tactile sound design.
Yeah. And you also have like the rhythmic ticking of the timer that just adds even more tension and this sense of impending doom as well.
Yeah, definitely. Well, all of these audio components paired with the visual components of the film, it really creates this legendary atmosphere that we've come to know over the past 20 years and really did change the genre. Mark, as the resident Saw-ophile here, wrap us out.
Okay. All right. Well, it was a blast to discuss the scene and the movie overall. I have so many fond memories of Saw, and I'm thrilled that the series has achieved such remarkable success, becoming actually one of the most profitable horror franchises with over $1 billion in total earnings.
That's crazy.
Yeah, kind of just hard to wrap your mind around. But I also want to mention that I think Saw is also special because I think it could only come from the minds of new, hungry filmmakers that were looking to push boundaries and kind of set themselves apart from other movies out there. And I think this scene perfectly embodies the franchise's edgy cinematography, the industrial score, and the twisted traps that reinvigorated the genre as a whole.
Nice.
Well said. And now that we have broken down the reverse bear trap scene, we'd like to welcome on our guest, Special Effects Supervisor Tom Brooklyn Bellissimo, for his pro take on Saw.
Amateur or professional?
Professional.
Hi, Tom. Thank you so much for joining us here on Scenecraft to talk about Saw for its 20-year anniversary.
My pleasure. Thanks for inviting me.
So, this being the pro take section of the podcast, we always like to dig into the background of our guest a little bit because you have such a fantastic history in the industry. How did you first get started in special effects and prop design for film?
It started in the 80s, and I was a book and magazine illustrator out of New York, and I moved to Hermosa Beach, California. And I happened to get MTV for free. I'm watching MTV. I had just come out, a year or two earlier, and I'm watching MTV and I'm going, this is what I want to do. I want to be involved in this. I love music. I love bands, and this thing is very creative, and I'd like to at least, dip my toes inside of it and see, because it was the up and coming thing and stuff. So I had saved enough money to not work for a while. And I started pursuing. I called up my brother's girlfriend who worked for MTV in New York. And I said, I'm in Los Angeles. What's the best company? And she goes, why do you want to know what the best company is? I says, because if I'm going to start from the bottom, I want to start from the bottom of the top. She said, okay. So the company was Limelight Productions, and they were doing Michael Jackson and this and that and everything else. So I started calling them up and asking for a job, and I would take anything, a PA job, production assistant. And they kept on shooting me down. Finally, I called up one day and it happened to click. They were looking for some people to beat the shit out of, and they work very hard for very little money. And they told me it pays $50. You have to work all day. There's no overtime, blah, blah. And you have to have your own car. I said, yeah, I got it, blah, blah. They says, okay. They said, tomorrow, meet at this place, blah, blah, blah. I said, great. So I was supposed to be there at 7 o'clock in the morning. I got there at 6. Okay, now I don't know what to do. So they're telling me my job is to help whoever needs help. So I'm helping whomever, the grips, the electricians, and I'm digging this. I'm like, wow, this is really friggin' cool. We work. We finish shooting. There's this chick singer, we're listening to this fucking song all day long. We finish up. I'm like, it's 6:30, 7 o'clock at night. This is cool. And, I dug this. This wasn't bad for $50. And he says, okay, now second location. Second location. And the second location was another hour north from where we were filming. So I go there, help out, this, that, pushing the car, doing this, doing that, getting that, going to the store, doing whatever the hell they need. And it's finally over. They call a wrap, and it's like 1:30 in the morning.
Mm.
And the production manager comes over to me and says, that Cadillac is yours? I said, yeah. And at the time, it was, in the 80s, and I'm driving a 1970 Coupe de Ville convertible. They says, we need you to give the singer a ride back to her hotel in Hollywood. Okay. So I wait, hold the door open. She gets inside the car. I'm driving to Hollywood. I look in the rearview mirror. She's in the back seat. She's falling asleep. I'm falling asleep.
Oh.
And I turned to her and I said, Madonna, if you don't talk to me, I'm going to fall asleep.
Oh, my God.
It was Madonna's first video.
Wow.
It was called Burning Up for Your Love.
Wow.
And from there, I just did video after video after video. Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers Don't Come Around Here No More, which won the MTV Best Special Effects, all sorts of shit like that. So from that, I broke into TV, and the first TV show I got was Tales from the Dark Side.
Uh-huh.
And Tales from the Dark Side was a very cheap horror show, and I worked on that for a couple of seasons, and then I did some movies, and the next thing you know, I'm working on Tales from the Crypt for HBO, 5 or 6 seasons. And that's how I got into using my hands, and I didn't know what the hell the special effects guy was, and one thing led to another, and then I met some special effects guys on other shows, and they took me under their wing, and because there is no school for it. It's passed down from effects guy to effects guy. What I did, mechanical effects. Now my 2 sons do it for a living.
Wow. Amazing. That's so amazing. Cool.
It's incredible.
So that's the basics.
Wow. That is so cool. I have to ask, how did you go from music videos, TV, and some of the other movies into something smaller, like a movie like Saw?
Sure. So I'm working on all these different movies and stuff. And because of Tales from the Crypt and whatnot, I was used to working on a lot of horror shows and, Tales from Dark Side. And with not much money and stuff, and just going, and that's what I was attracted to. I was attracted to the lower budget horror things because that's where I could shine.
Mm-hmm.
Building stuff and doing stuff and coming up with shit and everything, So one day I get a telephone call from Oren Koulis, who is one of the producers on Saw. And Oren says, hey, Tom, and we had worked together on another film. So he calls me up and he says, hey, Tom, I got the script. I'd like to send you. I said, okay. He goes, it's a horror. We got no money. We got less than $1 million. I says, all right. He goes, there's some cool stuff in it, and I'm sure you probably have some of the stuff on the shelf. I said, all right. So he sends me the script. I read the script. I call Lauren back the next day. I said, I'm in. I dig this. And he goes, okay, well, the director and the writer, he wrote it too, and then his partner's a writer. They're coming into town. They're from Australia. I want to introduce you to them. You talk to them and everything else. I said, okay. So I jotted down some ideas I had from the script on designs and whatnot. And I go in and go into this office, and they say, and James Wan is sitting there, and Lee Wanell. And the main thing was the reverse bear trap, because that's pretty much how we're starting, as far as torture devices and whatnot.
Yeah.
And I says, I got some ideas for it. And they says, well, we want to show you a film that we made. So they had done the teaser. Lee Wanell was wearing the reverse bear trap that they built in Australia to do this teaser to sell the script. I look at it and I go, okay, did it hurt your fucking head? And he said, yeah. I says, was it made out of steel? He goes, yeah. I says, it says there's a girl wearing this? And he says, yeah. I says, who's the actress? And they said, Shawnee. And I said, Shawnee, is she like a really thin, small girl and everything? They said, yeah. I says, there's no fucking way you're going to put a contraption like this on her head. So they said, well, we have to. What could we do? I says, well, first, we'll make it out of aluminum. Second, instead of making it the way you have it, which was so heavy on the sides, I'm going to find aluminum things that I could put on it to keep it lightweight, yet make it look really scary and mechanical. And they agreed. I took the front, what they had, changed it a bit, made it out of aluminum, and then I went to a swap meet and walked around the swap meet, and I'm looking for cool things I could attach to this friggin' thing. Oh, gears for a bicycle. Oh, an aluminum brake component for a bicycle. That's cool. Oh, cables. And I knew I had to make the thing open up, so I had to put a piston on it. So I found a very small piston. I put a small piston on it. That's how we came up with the thing. And the crazy thing was, at the last minute, just before we were getting ready to shoot this thing, it was the day of, the production designer came over to me and brought me an antique stopwatch. And I said, yeah. And they said, well, James wants this on the back. It goes, tick, 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 tick. It's going. I says, okay, so can I put a screw through this thing? No, we rented it. Could I glue it on and then we'll try? No, we rented it. We can't damage this thing. I'm like, fuck. I'm looking around inside my trailer and I see a jar of Vaseline. And I take the jar of Vaseline and it has a top that doesn't screw off, it pops off. And I take the watch and the watch fits on it. So I drilled a hole, put the watch inside there and screwed that to the back of the thing. And that's what's on it. And even the gears and stuff that are on the back of the thing, the mechanism, people the first few years will call me up going, how the fuck did you build that? What is that made? How'd you come up with that and everything? I came up with that. It was a 1950s adding machine that I bought at that swap meet, took the cover off, went, cool, gears, broke it in half, turned it upside down, put it back together and put it on the back of that thing. So I had all these numbers and all these gears. And it looked like that was connected to the timer stopwatch to make the thing go. And the thing that blows me away is I'm on Facebook and shit like that. People are always reaching out to me and sending me pictures of tattoos of the reverse bear trap. And it still wins in so many contests where fans are voting on what is the best trap ever made. Reverse bear trap. And it's like, I shot from the hip on that one.
Wow. Yeah, so cool hearing about all the work and thought that went into pulling off that bear trap device. Obviously, it's one of our favorites and one of the most iconic trap designs in the Saw franchise, in horror movies, period. There's another one that really caught our eye, the drill chair in Jigsaw's hideout. How do you construct something like that safely? And are you briefing the actors on how it works to ensure that they're comfortable during their performance?
Absolutely. Safety first. It's really, honestly, it's safety first. But what I ended up doing with that was I took 2 drills that my father gave me. So I took these 2 drills. Okay, so now these 2 drills have to come to the guy's head, right? So I get a linear track. I borrowed it off a friend of mine. I built mechanisms to hold these 2 drills and make the drills, go towards the head, okay? So I put 2 stops in, put the actor inside there. He's worried. I'm saying, do the action you're going to do, overdo it. I want to see what you're going to do. And I have the drill way to the edge. So he's doing this thing. So I go, okay, the drills can't go past this, right?
Yeah.
So he's there. He's freaking out in front of film, acting. And the drills start, right? He's like, we go back to Danny Glover's face or whatever and stuff. Cut. Take the drill bits out. I took 2 pieces of rubber and painted them silver and put black tape around them. And put those in. So now those are spinning. So if he does hit it, he ain't going to hurt himself. And now we can put it closer and closer and closer slowly to his head as he's freaking out. Wow. And then, of course, the guy shoots it with the gun. Bing, bing, bing. And some sparks and voila, special effects.
Incredible.
So great.
And then a little later in the same sequence, we then have Jigsaw's kind of switchblade arm dagger. How did that design come to be, and how does that mechanical opening action actually work?
One of the guys who works with me, his name is Shannon Thompson. I'm busy doing stuff with the reverse bear trap, and this show is the only people on it are me and Charlie Bellardinelli. I don't have anybody else. And I went to Shannon and I said, Shannon, dude, I need a favor. I need you to build this thing for me, blah, blah, blah. I'll throw you some money, this and that and everything else. He says, what does it got to do? I says, okay, it got to be a blade. It got to be about this big, blah, 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 blah. I like it to be made out of aluminum. Then I need a dull one so that if the guy's running and he falls down, he doesn't kill himself. I says, and on cue, I need it to open up. He goes, can he do some kind of action with his hand in order to open up? I said, yeah, well, if it's on top of his hand, we don't want it to stick and hit his hand. So it is good to make his hand go down to actuate it. So it comes out. So Shannon took a piece of aluminum that we had in the scrap pile, made a blade out of it, made 2 blades out of it, put it on a track, which was actually, if you open up a drawer in your kitchen, there's the mechanisms on the side, the drawer slides. He used the drawer slide to make it go forward and back. Then he had to put it on an arm. How am I going to put it on an arm? Don't have the money, blah, blah, blah. A shin guard. He took a shin guard that fit on an arm, put the mechanism on it, put 2 springs on it. Now he had to make it so that you could let it go and unhook it and let the springs throw it forward. So he custom built a thing that fit in the palm of your hand, that it wouldn't go unless you put your palm of your hand in the mechanism. So that's why he goes shishing and then cuts Danny Glover's throat. And then he runs away with the thing. And when he ran away with the thing, we took it off his arm and then we put like a rubberized kind of sleeve on his arm and stuck the dull aluminum one inside his run down the street, run down the alley or whatever. That was it.
Oh, that's so great. I really love hearing about how you guys had to come up with stuff on the fly and really kind of use different things from everyday life and kind of incorporate them into these designs. But one question I wanted to ask was, in that same sequence, we see Ken Leung step into a tripwire, and then he gets mowed down by a line of shotguns on the ceiling. How did you guys achieve that synchronized blast between the firearms? We're assuming it was blank rounds to create that effect, or maybe it was CGI. Can you talk to us a little bit about that?
There's no CGI inside of it. I mean, they couldn't afford me, never mind afford CGI at that time, which was very expensive. So what we ended up doing was props got us a bunch of shotguns. We hung the shotguns up, pointing them all down. Had to come up with a rig that he could trip and not see. So we used fishing line, and then we put the fishing line so that the audience could see that there was a tripwire there, a fishing line, monofilament, and we sprayed special effects cobwebs around.
Oh.
So the fishing line looked like the cobwebs, but you can see that it's actually a tripwire, blah, blah. But the guy who's coming through the thing would not see it, because he's hunting or whatever, right? And then we used flash bulbs, old-fashioned flash bulbs from, like cameras and stuff, and put gels on them, different red gels and orange gels and stuff like that, and put those above him. So when he pushed the wire, I could push a button and all the gels go off. And I believe to the side, we shot off a shotgun round, a fake round, just to make it go so that we could sell the sound at the same time. And that was it. You put things together and you got the shot.
So as you're approaching these traps, each one is so specific and so contextually relevant to what's happening in the film. Where do you start in your approach to the traps? Is it something on a script level that is described very clearly, or are you figuring out how to change them a bit with Wan and Wanell as you're working through it?
Yeah, well, you're reading the script and it's describing the mechanism or whatever to you. So I have to look at that and go, in my own mind, being the special effects coordinator on the show and have been done so many different things and seeing by testing mistakes and, this works really well and blah, blah, blah. I always try to give like 3 options. Okay. There's this option, there's this option, and there's that option. And you throw that at them and let them pick one. Lots of times I have a design inside my head And because I'm an illustrator, or I used to do that for a living, I'm able to draw the thing out and blah, 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 and say, this is what I'm thinking, and blah, blah. And we can make the changes right there, and I could scribble stuff out and everything else and stuff. So that's how we come up with a lot of the stuff. And then I turn around and, my crew I've had crew up to 30 people working for me. But the core of my crew is like 6 people.
Okay.
That I did a lot of movies with, and now they're on their own. They work together, but not under me anymore. My kids are involved with them. They're teaching my kids.
Amazing.
Yeah. Special effects guys, because there's not many of us. Mechanical effects guys, right? So, and pyrotechnicians. We all know each other, even across the globe. So if a director comes to me and goes, the way they blew up this car in la, 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 that's what I envisioned for this over here. I go, oh, okay. Yeah, let me work on that. Who blew up the car? Oh, his name is so-and-so. Call up the union. Can I have his telephone number? Get his telephone number. Hey, motherfucker, how did you blow up that car? And they'll tell me the 3 weeks it took experimenting and stuff, and how they came up with that. We used cannons underneath it and sand to blow the hood off and la, 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 la. Thank you. And then I go, yeah, I could do it.
So obviously, Tom, this interview has been focused on the traps, which are a big part of Saw, but we wanted to know if you could leave listeners with any kind of other kind of lasting memories about the franchise and in your time working on this film.
I have one other thing to tell you. It's important to my soul when it comes to Saw. The original Saw, the movie poster, was Shawnee wearing the reverse bear trap and looking, right? That's the original poster. Well, I told you, I have 4 children. I have 2 sons, 2 daughters. My middle daughter, Alexandra, she designs movie posters. She designed the poster for Saw 10.
Oh, no way.
Yeah,
that's cool.
And won an award for it. She also did Beetlejuice, and the new Alien movie. I mean, she's just
no way
kicking ass.
Wow.
Yeah, that's
good
her
for
designs.
Her.
She
Congrats to her. That's
companies,
amazing.
the designs, yeah. So it to my heart, it's like I did the first one. The poster is because of a mechanism that I built.
Yeah.
And the 10th one, my daughter came up with the thing.
Wow, that's so cool. What a full circle moment for the family and the legacy that you leave.
Yeah. It's kind of crazy.
It definitely speaks to what you were talking about with passing down the skill set of a special effects supervisor and that discipline of the industry. So cool. And, clearly Saw has made such a huge cultural impact over the past 20 years. And it just wouldn't have been the same without your expertise. So thank you, Tom, for all of this detail and for coming on to celebrate the movie with us today.
Thank you.
Thanks.
It was a real pleasure, really.
Bye.
Bye, guys.
Thanks so much, Tom.
Thank you again to Tom Brooklyn Bellissimo for his pro take on Saw. And thank you to our listeners and fellow movie enthusiasts for reliving this scene with us. Do you have a favorite scene from Saw? You can email us at contact@scenecraftpodcast.com with any of your thoughts or comments. Or follow us on Instagram, X, TikTok, or Threads at Scenecraft Podcast for any scheduling updates and news. You can support the podcast by leaving us a review or star rating on your platform of choice. A very special thanks to Jordan Summerlad for our spooky theme music this week. This has been Scenecraft, where we break down the craft behind our favorite scenes. Don't forget, get out there and vote on November 5th. Happy Halloween, and see you all next time.